When you come into the world, we take on the identity of those who are more powerful than us. What we're looking for is a kind of person who is looking for meaning. What's the meaning of life? Why am I here?
Well, welcome to the Sunday Conversation. I am Alan Masters, here today to talk a little bit about life, the journey, and what it's like to fill the shoes of my father. And you know, I want to start out by saying I'm not trying to fill the shoes of my father. He has done a fantastic job of leaving an amazing legacy for all of us, for you, for your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and the rest of the world for the rest of history. 22 books, 50 years of recordings. There's no reason for me to fill his shoes. I have my own shoes, although he and I wear the same size shoes, and I do tend to take his shoes if he doesn't wear them. You know, it's funny. I find myself reacting just a little bit to some of the comments on social media. And I know that the first rule of social media is to not react to the comments of the people that are sitting in their basements saying nasty little things. But my brother sent me something the other day, he'll be here in a moment, but I just wanted to start out talking just briefly about this. He sent me something about the man in the arena. Does everybody here know about the man in the arena? Just Google the man in the arena. Because it is perhaps one of the most brilliant things ever written. Do you remember who wrote it, David? Theodore Roosevelt. And I don't want to just read it to you, but I'll give you a basic synopsis of what it is. The man in the arena fighting the lion, his opponent, whoever it is down in the arena fighting the fight, fighting the good fight. And all of the people are sitting in the stands judging and armchair quarterbacking of what he should have done, what he could do better, and all these things. And in the end, it is the man in the arena who is fighting the fight, who is sweating, who is getting cut, who is getting hurt, but he is fighting a valiant fight. And I wish that you would all go and look at the man in the arena and read that story, because you'll understand. It is not easy sitting up here. And although I'm not afraid to be up here, I don't like being up here. I don't like having to bare my soul. I don't think David or my sister Diane or any of us children of my father like sitting up here. It's not something you like to do. It's something that you are called to do, and you have a choice to do it. I called my son-in-law. I said, hey, come down and help, would you? He says, no, I don't want to. Don't want to. Now, that's the easy way out. I don't want to do what I'm called to do. I don't want, even if it's just a favor. But some people just would rather live their lives in their comfort zone, not stepping out, not daring to try something new, daring to meet themselves face to face when they're sitting here having to come up with something to say, when the only real way to be able to come up with something to say is to yield to the higher power and let God speak through you. Not an easy job. Easy job, sit in the armchair and armchair quarterback. Easy job, judge and say, what a fool that guy is, trying to fill his father's shoes. I'm not trying to fill his shoes. I don't need to fill his shoes. One of our board members, Chuck Williams, told me that he took a call from somebody that was wanting to talk to somebody at the foundation here, and they heard one of these Sunday conversations, and they don't even know how they came across it. They just saw somebody talking and or heard something or whatever it was and decided to listen for a few minutes and bought 7 books, and over a period of a couple of weeks read the 7 books of my father's different books and started meditating and started saying, I've never heard anybody talk like this before. So we don't know how far this goes out into the world, this recording. We don't know how far it does. But I was with an 81-year-old man over the weekend, or during the week, I should say. And he was just such a sweet guy. He's a billionaire, actually. And I told him about what I was doing. And I showed him a few minutes of one of the conversations that we have up here on stage. And he says, "You've got a target on your back." And I said, "What?" He said, "Because I'm going to come after you. I want to help you." This man's a billionaire. He's 81 years old, and he's tired. And I could see that he was tired. I was on a celebrity golf tournament with a bunch of celebrities. And this guy was there because he was the chairman of the board of the entire organization that was putting on this thing. And it was so interesting. I got to be in the same, we each at this golf course had our own house with 3 other people, a 4-bedroom houses, and each one had their own bedroom. And I happened to be in the house with this older gentleman. And I could tell that he was old, and I asked him, I said, "How old are you?" And he says, "I'm 81. But he looked tired. He talked tired. His clothes were a little dirty from dropping food on his lap. And I thought, that man has lived an amazing life. And it shows on him. He was wearing it. He was wearing it because he was tired. And because fighting is hard. Fighting in the arena is hard. And so I got a chance to spend time with him purely by accident, but nothing is by accident. And so each morning I woke up, and I'm an early riser, and I would go downstairs from my room in this beautiful home in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and he was sitting downstairs, and we'd have a few minutes to talk. And he says to me, "I'm really impressed with you, young man." He says, I want to help you. He said, "You let me know how I can help you." And I thought, he knows that he has got to pass the baton because he's old and he's tired. And then I thought, man, my dad's 91 years old. In the hospital, he's trying to help people. He never stops trying to help people. Even when he's tired, he's trying to help people. And so these trolls, some of you people, and if it is not you people here, and if it's not you people at home, there are people watching that are trolls that say stupid things on my father's Facebook page and the foundation's Facebook page. And I say, how dare you? What do you do in your lives that make a difference the way that my father, for his entire life, has tried to make a difference, the way that I am trying to make a difference? Do you dare to live greatly? No. You troll. You say stupid things. You put things out into the world to cause doubt. You're a tool of the devil. So I say, be gone with you. And I will make sure that our staff deletes you from our page. So if you leave stupid things, you'll be deleted. But if you want to join in the conversation, to offer an opinion, then you're welcome. But we want to dare to live greatly. Fortune favors the bold. If we are not bold in our life, if we don't stand up for something, we'll fall for anything. So I was watching my reaction to this one particular, or 2 particular, 3 particular people that were talking back and forth, and I deleted you. Hopefully you'll watch some other way and realize you're being talked about. If you haven't been deleted, you'll be found out, and you will. Because this forum is to try and help people, not to tear people down. I bring Chuck up here, Chuck Williams, my brother David Masters. Today you're going to meet my sister Diane Linderman. I always still call her Diane Masters. But I, in my life, want to dare to live greatly, which means that when I'm called or asked to do something that I don't want to do, I look at, first of all, is it the right thing to do? Would I be being helpful to somebody in their life? Can I do it? Do I have the ability to do it? Am I willing to try even though I don't know how? But I challenge myself each and every time to move forward and know that God will give me what I need to do this job. So I'm not trying to fill my father's shoes. I don't think David is trying to fill his father's shoes. I don't think my sister Diane is trying to fill her father's shoes. I don't think any of us children are. But today we're going to band together so that we can all speak with one voice, so that you know that we are taking care of a jewel of this world, our Father. And most of you agree with that. But everything, all good things, come to an end. And at 91 years old, he still wants to be here talking to you. But at some point, when do we say, Father, it's okay to pass the baton? In this case, it looks kind of like this. And it's actually easier to grab because there's more places to grab a hold of it. But I will say that he still wants to be up here talking to you, but he's 91 and he's tired. And somebody says, oh, I beg to differ. I disagree. Let me just tell you something. He's tired, but he won't stop. Just because a person is tired doesn't mean you have to stop. He will not stop. But at some point, his body is going to stop him. The good Lord is going to stop him here and take him to another place. So we are the guardians of our Father, and we gladly sit in his chair, not wear his shoes. His shoes are the writings that he has written that are there for you. His recordings are constantly being broadcast out, and they're available to you. And we're going to continue with the legacy, what I call the legacy project, which is to continue his message and also be able to add our lives to it. And hopefully our lives can be somewhat of a help to you, because we all live different kinds of lives and have different kinds of problems and issues that we have struggled. I've gone broke in business. I needed that. That was the best thing that ever happened to me. I was late because I was selling a building to the birth of a child that I ended up having to deliver on the floor at my dad's house. I needed that. Now, my wife didn't need that, but I needed all these experiences. And without these experiences, I wouldn't have the character that I have today. I wouldn't have the courage that I have today to sit here and speak to you folks around the world and know that I don't know. I don't know what's next. I don't know what to say 3 minutes from now. I don't know what to say 1 minute from now. I don't know what to say next. So I'm going to bring up my brother David. David, come on up. But that's how it works. You literally have to just be a conduit. So you guys know David Masters, my brother. And I just want you to know that we're here trying our best to be able to continue the job that my father was brought to this earth to do by our Creator. And we both recognize it, knowing that we're both broken people, knowing that we still are learning just like you. But I dare to live greatly, and I think my brother David is trying to dare to live greatly as well. We're here. We just show up. If you don't show up, you can't do the job. So, any thoughts?
Yeah, I appreciate what you're talking about. But I say to these trolls, continue. Waste your life doing it. Don't do anything constructive with your life. Don't get better. Stay where you are. Wait for your reward. That's easy. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that.
You know what's funny is I want to respond to some of them. I feel very drawn to respond when they say foolish things. And I actually might at some point start doing that, but I'm just not ready yet because I don't want to have any anger in it. Because I think to myself, at what point is it okay for my father to pass the baton? At what point? Do you want him to do it in his dying breath? Here you go. No. What did my father say? What is the final thing he said on the last few of these recordings that he did. One word. A 4-letter word.
Calm.
Calm. Be still and know.
It has to be the left hand. Calm. Repeat
So
after me. Calm.
I think, and I listened to that. At first I didn't hear it. I thought, all right, would you quit repeating yourself? You've said that, Dad. You've said that because, he's my dad. He's Roy Masters to you. He's my dad. When I was sucking my thumb as a little kid and he said, quit sucking your thumb, I'd say, leave me alone.
I outsucked you, by the way. 13 years.
Yeah, I think you did by about 6 months. He says he outsucked me. But the point is that what did Jesus say when he was on the cross? Everyone knows it. Probably the most famous words on planet Earth. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. My Father's, not final words, but the final words that you guys may see on this recording. I mean, it's up to him. If he gets better and he really wants to come back and he's feeling good because he's old and he's got old age ailments, you may see him back here again. But the final things he said to us all was calm. So if the most famous words from Jesus were, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, and then the most famous words from my Father were some of those final words, because he's alive and he's fine, but the last thing that he said to the world is calm. Let us practice that. And I'm going to just give it one more. It's the same as be still and know. Because it's just so perfectly simple. If you brought it down to an E equals MC squared, this is just a C, calm. One word, 4 letters, doesn't get any easier.
I want to say also to the trolls.
Oh, quit talking to the trolls.
No, everybody then. That my dad, our father, who art on earth, he lived an entire lifetime longer than his father. His father died at the age of 43, I believe.
Yeah.
My dad's 91, so he's lived an entire lifetime plus 7 years, I think.
Yeah.
So it's, it's okay if you want to sit back and make judgments. It's okay. It's not going to hurt us, is what I want to say. It's not going to hurt us at all.
No, it's because it's all part of the challenge of taking over this role.
Yeah.
And do I wish there was 1,000 people in the audience? Sure. But that's what all this does. There is 1,000 people in the audience, but I just can't look at the faces. So we're going to fix that at some point by having a television screen and allowing you to Skype in to this conversation on Sunday morning. And as I said, as we continue forward, but we are trying to help our dad and mom who are at the last stages of their life. They're tired. And we want them to move on to the next realm in peace. And that doesn't mean people trying to peck at them at the last moments of their life, taking that last bit of life, even though my dad will give it to you. He will give it to you. But I think we, his family, are protecting his dignity. Because he will give it to you. He will give you his life until he takes his last breath. And I guess there's people that would shake him to try to get that last little bit of juice. You didn't finish the sentence. And I'm not going to let you. You know what I'm saying? In other words, there are people, not hopefully any of you that are watching, but there are people. But all he's trying to do is to turn you over to your Father in heaven. And he says, be calm. I mean, we're his children, so he had high expectations for us. And then I remember we got to a certain point where he just realized, all right, well, they're going to go and make their mistakes. Mm-hmm. And I've done that earlier than my dad has because I realized my children, I cannot corral them and keep them corralled and protect them from themselves. The sooner they fail, the better. I failed at 34 or 5 years old. Whew, that wasn't easy.
I got you beat on that one.
Diane will tell you, we've all had to fail. Guess what? Anybody in the room who hasn't failed at something in their life that they look back now and go, wow, I learned so much from that. We are our best teachers. We are. A man's greatest victory is to conquer himself. We are also our best teachers in that. In that journey, we are our best teachers. And the reason is because there is a battle between good and evil inside of us. And we really at some point have to realize, and that's why my father has said 1,000 times, and it says, I'm sure, many places of myself I can do nothing. Because without our Father in heaven, the supreme being of all the universe, we're nothing. We're just going to continue this whirling dervish life that most of us live until we run out of juice and it's over. You ever seen one of those things during 4th of July? You light it and it goes, that's us, and then lights out. Not my dad. 91 years old. Went to the hospital the other day. He's been in the hospital dealing. He's got his issues, and it's so funny. My sister, I think, told me, she's sitting in the front row here. She said that all the nurses just love Dad. They said, you're the most interesting man we've had in here in a long time, because he's always doing magic tricks or talking about life, talking about understanding, human understanding. And as we are trying to understand the bell-shaped curve of life, it's not easy. It's not easy watching my cat die, let alone watching my father and mother come to the end of their lives. How many of you guys have experienced watching your parents come to the end of their life? Yes, many. This is my time. This is David's time. This is Diane's time, Michael and Mark's time. 91 is a long, long life. 92, 95. He may live to 100. But you never know. I remember sitting in my other building doing this talk saying, I stand ready. Does anybody remember that talk I did? I actually called it I Stand Ready. 5 years ago, we thought my dad was going to die. 25 years ago, we thought my dad was going to die. He had to have it was 23 years ago. I was at his house. He had open heart surgery because he had blocked arteries, which his father had at 43. He had at 68. We thought, well, he could die. So we prepared for my father to die. He didn't die. His doctors have died. So I'm not preparing for my dad to die. Don't get me wrong. But I continue to stand ready. I don't want to let my dad sit up here and struggle while has a UTI or something to do the talk. So I'll come in and I'll do the talk. Chuck will come in. Chuck Williams come in, one of our board of directors. David Masters come in. We continue doing the church services. This whole organization cannot be built on the head of one single man. It takes a village. We are the village. We are the village. So today is a little bit, because there's just a lot of trolls out there asking all kinds of silly questions, which if they had just been watching for the last year, where have you been? Where have you been that you don't see my father saying up here that, all this is going on? I don't get it. So I know 2 years ago when I became the president of the foundation, in February, my father posted something on Facebook. I said, please take that down. There's no reason to put that Alan will be running the foundation. It's not necessary. It doesn't matter. Foundation is running like a sewing machine. And Diane, my sister, is on the board. Chuck Williams is on the board. Connie, Derek. If you want to ask questions, ask questions. It's simple. But don't be a troll and say little ugly things. We're here to answer the questions, any questions. We take calls from people that have problems. We want to help. We want to use what God has given us to help. If I don't have the answer, I may defer to David or to Chuck, or you might get a phone call from my dad. So we want to help. We're here to help. Can I bring Diane up for a few minutes?
Yeah.
This is my sister, Diane Linderman, a.k.a. Diane Masters.
Just call me Diane Masters.
And you have been you have been busy working in your business and are here for a week helping out, checking on mom and dad, and watching how dad is improving, and maybe you could tell that story about the girls in the hospital. Was that your story?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. I don't want to.
Well, first of all, I want to say something about trolls,
Yeah.
AKA troll. They live under a bridge. Think about it, because that's when those people are busy doing their worst, we get to take the jobs that those people might have in the world. So, AKA troll, live under that bridge. Live it. And that's the way I think of those trolls. I don't even know what they said, but it doesn't matter.
It
I've been
doesn't
called a
matter.
troll before because I'm always commenting on everybody's stuff too. So whatever that means.
No, but it's not that the comment. It really isn't the comment. It's the person trying to antagonize or spin some sort of poison
Yeah.
that is really the bad part. Like I said,
I get a lot
leave
of-
your comments. If you have a comment you want to start
Yeah.
a conversation, that's one thing. But think about it. Measure it before it comes out of your mouth or out of your thumbs if you're on your little machine, or on your fingertips if you're at your home PC. Think about it. Try to do good with your comments, not just to throw pie or sling poo. It just makes no good comes from
Here's
that.
what I think, Alan, just about this situation, is that people like that are cowards, and that's all they can do. And I wouldn't even read them if I were you. I don't read bad things. It's just those people are sitting back full of judgment, full of hate, going nowhere in life, and their whole entire job is to antagonize. So we don't get antagonized. We kind of enjoy
I just
it.
delete 'em.
I love trolls. Come at me. Give it to me. You know, that's the way I feel. But
Well.
I was just going to talk about a little bit about me and
Yeah.
sort of some of the things I've learned in life, because all my brothers and I are completely different. We have taken what my dad has been a good example of, and I was just talking to some of my business partners, which are ex-troubled teenagers, and I love working with kids, and so my whole life has started when I had this wildlife park out here, and somehow we ended up with all these troubled kids. So we housed them, we fed them, we taught them to work, a work ethic. Before I knew it, this is like 37 years ago, we now have this big company, and we've turned 12 or 13 of them into partners. But the interesting thing about these young people, and what I have realized about the benefit of being Roy's daughter and the sons of Roy, is that we're just like them in a way. The only difference is that I always tell this story, is that as I was growing up, the only difference between my dad and the rest of the world is that when I saw something about something, he did not let me doubt myself. And most people's life is about doubt. And I deal with it every day with all these kids. I have 35 to 40 people that work with me all the time. And I realize how simple helping people is. If I could show them that they're just, those thoughts are not theirs. Everybody has a troll in their head. Those thoughts are not theirs. And if they allow those thoughts to just like look at them and go, what? That's not my thought. And then you're okay, like that moment. Because if you could help a person go, that's not my thought.
But you know what? And here's what it boils down to. Be calm and be still and realize there's a difference between a thought and usually you can look at these thoughts and they have kind of a taint. They have a little bit of anger, a little bit of poison. And if you stay in your center and you stay calm, even the thoughts that you think, it's in my head, it must be me, you'll be able to differentiate between the true you and the troll you. My dad calls it the monkey brain, okay? Because we all have a monkey brain, and the monkey brain issues forth all kinds of craziness. The question is, can you be calm enough to tell the difference? And I think that perhaps is the most important part of the meditation, is because if you don't have a calmness about you, then you're going to take every thought that comes into your head and run with it. And guess what? You'll find yourself in jail. You'll find yourself in trouble with the law. You'll find yourself marrying the wrong person. You'll find yourself in business with the wrong person. And that list, I could keep going forever. You will find yourself at the wrong place because you are following the wrong voice. Really, there's a difference between the voice you need to follow, which isn't really a voice, it's a knowing. The voice in your head is going to talk to you and then give you all this kind of gibberish, as my dad calls it, babble, 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 right?
Well, I'm going to finish.
Go ahead. But the correct one is
I
the
didn't
knowing.
get to that part yet.
Okay.
So the truth is that I've had like 35 years with my father's wisdom that he bestowed upon me, and little tiny anecdotes along the way, like all things will pass. These are little Bible verses that
This too shall pass.
Yeah, this too shall pass. And all these little things that come to me in these moments when I am dealing with all these people, and the only difference between me and the people I'm helping is that my dad kept me from doubting what I knew was right in my heart. And when I came to my dad, I didn't, go there emotionally. He wouldn't even talk to me if I was emotional. I had to say, Dad, blah, 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 blah. And he would say, da, 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 da. And before I knew it, I was being sure of myself. And I found that affect people in a very positive way. People that try to pull the wool over your eyes constantly, the trolls, whoever it is, I enjoy them. Whereas most people freak out and run from them. You know what? When I see a fight going on, I'm not the person to run away. I'm the one to go run right up in the face of it. And it's all about practice for me. And my whole life, and I'll tell you a little story because I'm about stories like him. When I was, I have these petting zoos and things, and our deer eat people's clothing. And you walk in the door, and a woman had an $800 dress on, and we have signs everywhere. She comes running out, and she's like, "You owe me $800." And I'm standing there, and I'm like, okay. I told her, go get $800. The lady's looking at me like this. I didn't react to her. Just money, right? And she's like, well, wait. You're going to give me $800? I'm like, you said your dress was worth $800. So they bring me $800. She goes, no. How about 200? I'm like, you sure? 200? Go get 200.
But you had 800.
Well, I had 800. So anyway, she brought me the 200, and she goes, well, wait. How about just a couple cups of feed? I'm like, are you sure? And what I learned in that moment, and I have learned to love a good fight, but it's the way you fight the fight. If you're not guilty of anything, and there's where your doubt may or may not be there. If you don't have doubt, you know yourself. You know you're not guilty of anything, and I'm not attached to money. And if that woman says her dress was $800, I was willing to give it to her. But because I did not react to her, I am not full of greed. I know who I am. I'm not attached to anything. I'm not even attached to the outcome. That woman was so happy with her 2 cups of feed. And I learned a lot that day. It's about not doubting yourself, again, and not reacting. So the other side of not doubting yourself is not reacting. The moment you react, you lose your ground, you lose your connection with your heavenly dad. As my dad gets older, and we've watched lots of people get help from what he does. And there's always a little bit of something in the back of my mind that wonders if I just took that meditation and they didn't know my dad or what he said, or would it help them? So 2 people lately, just in the last few weeks actually, or months, was a girl that's working with me. And these are people that just come from out of the world and they work for us. They hire them. We come to find out their whole life is horrible. This girl's father molests her. Even to this day at 38 years old, she's a most amazing worker I've ever met, a sweetheart. And I said to her, and she has a demon in her. And I had to live with that demon in her, and I called it, I actually had a name for it. It was Oscar. And Oscar got angry once in a while it was in the same trailer as me. And so what I did is I said, my dad has a 7-minute meditation. And she's like, well, I go, all I want you to do, I don't even want you to listen to it. I just want you to put it into your ear, and I want his voice to be in your ear instead of that voice. I was experimenting. Yes, I was. I wanted to know what would happen. So she goes, all right. So I gave her the little, connection, the little app. She got on it, and every time the thing started talking to her and freaking her out, she called him Grandpa. puts it into her ear, and she's like, perfectly fine. She goes, he goes in one ear, the bad guy comes out the other ear. This girl has come so far in the last 3 or 4 months, and now she's listening to the words and meditating, and now she's watching my dad's videos. So here's the most beautiful part about this. There's another girl that came back to our business, and she went and got married and ended up marrying a very horrible man, and she came back just to find some solitude working with them. Working with animals it's just something incredible. It does something good to your soul. It's sort of a therapy. Anyway, she was telling me these horrible things. She was so angry, and this woman is absolutely beautiful. She's like a model. And her whole life, she's been abused by men, blah, 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 right? So I said the same thing. I want you to put that thing in your ear, and if you want to listen to it, wonderful. If you don't, just let the voice put you to sleep at night, whatever it is. Within hours, now I've never seen this before, she called me, she goes, I am so clear-minded after just listening to your dad 2 or 3 times. I want you to know I absolutely see everything that's wrong with my life. And I'm like, whoa, that I'm a believer. I'm suddenly a believer in what my dad does. 100%, because, I always think, well, you have to listen to my dad for a while, and then no, this is a miracle stuff. This is a miracle. And I watched it happen with these girls. It's like anything else in life. If you are moved by something greater than yourself, you don't even know why you're doing it, right? And I was like a little doubtful, maybe I shouldn't, but then everything kept falling into place. I had no money. Speaking about broke, I went bankrupt like 8 years ago, and it was the most, like Alan said, it was the best thing that ever happened to me in my entire life. I would have never have known what I know now, and my husband and I run our company like based upon the principles that we've learned from doing that. I tried not to, believe me. I sold everything. I had nothing left. We lived in a trailer. It was a beautiful thing. My kids got so much benefit out of living in a trailer for 3 years. It's called appreciation. But I talk about, a little bit of like when you know that you're supposed to do something in life, and you just know you have to go that way, and you're compelled to go, and you don't even know yourself. You just know you have to. And I had to go against brothers and father. And when I went there in this house that I bought, the people left a sign. And guess what it said? Be still and know that I am God. And I'm like, there's a sign. So I just thought I'd share that with you because it's kind of cute.
All right.
I'll let my other brother come up there now.
So thank you, Diane. Appreciate you coming up to talk. I think it's important that everybody gets to see our family being human beings, just regular people existing in this world, but not just existing, making a difference, trying to make a difference. Diane and I constantly talk about how we have all these extra kids, and it costs more to raise extra kids. It takes more energy. It takes more love. It takes time. But what is your life all about? What are you spending your life on if you're not doing something good, if you're not living boldly and trying to make a difference? So the old gentleman, I started out talking about the old gentleman who was 10 years younger than my father. The old gentleman says to me, he says, your life, you're making a difference. He says, that's what I want to do. I want to make a difference in my life. He said, that's why I want to help you. And I said, well, I want my life to somehow be a ripple out into the world, into time, to where that even if the ripple is my children, and then from them, their children, and from them, their children, that is how you keep this message alive, is that you live it. It doesn't matter how much you go to church and worship. If you just go back home and go back to work and live the same old life, there's no ripple effect. You're not making a difference in this world. I say make a difference. Be bold. Stand up. Do something. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. But then it isn't just to be stand up and be wild. Then you look like a fool. Stand up and be calm. And God will put his peace in your heart. And he'll put in your heart what you need to do. But it takes courage to stand up and not know what to say until you're standing up and all of a sudden something comes to you. And you say, I have something to say. And that something will come from a higher place. Unless you sit there and think about it and have a script ready and say, I have something to say. It's not quite the same thing.
Very interesting. I will just add that what I've discovered about most people, which they themselves don't know yet, is that people operate based on false information. In other words, no matter what culture you go to, if you go to Africa, China, Germany, it doesn't make any difference. The culture is going to, for lack of a better word, brainwash you from the moment you're born. And that false information is going in about who you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do. Go to this church, don't say this, do that. So I found some interesting documentaries, and I'm actually going through them, and I'm selecting certain parts of them, because this is one of the most amazing things that has never been talked about. And actually, the people who are doing the research on false memories, they get the most incredible pushback. Because people don't want to believe. Once you accept a lie, you want to believe that it's the truth. Whatever it is that's false. What does it mean to be false anyway? If somebody says something to you and it's false, it means they're lying. But that information goes into you, and as the United States military stated in 1998, the mind has no firewall. There is nothing to keep that information from getting in you and programming you.
And this is what the media is doing to us
Absolutely.
right now.
We hear about the fake news.
Yeah.
Yes, it's fake news. But the people who are used to digesting what is fake, that's truth to them. So the polarity has to shift. Everybody has to go through a personal shift from living in a false place, operating off of the false information, the lies, and eventually, as you begin to see, and as Alan properly said, know the truth and it shall make you free. What is the truth? Well, the truth reveals the false.
But here's the thing, and I'll add to this because I think this is actually quite interesting.
Yeah.
I say the mind does not have a firewall, correct, until such times as there's an awakening and you can be calm, and that calmness is the firewall. Because if you don't choose to be calm and to be still and know who the Creator is, then correctly said, there is no firewall and you just become a puppet. You're a puppet to the world, but those who are calm and know the truth, know the truth.
Okay, this is great. Because the next step is this. Objectivity is not an attribute of human nature. Objectivity is acquired, just like knowledge.
But you have it when you're a baby.
Well, you do.
Watch them because they don't have the language to argue, so they watch.
True.
They're learning.
And by the way, you know the smartest that you are in your life? I didn't know this. The minute you're born. The brain of a baby is twice as capable of absorbing information than an adult. We actually lose the ability to absorb information as we get older. In other words, but it's not information that matters at a certain point. The baby has to learn how to talk and walk. The baby's actually geared to grow very quickly and absorb a lot of information in a very short period of time. But the first thing that happens is, as Alan makes a correct statement, the baby is objective, but it's programmed. It's born to succeed, but programmed to fail. Because along with that information gathering that baby's doing, false information is being input.
Right.
Constantly. Now, that's nobody's fault because none of us actually understand what we're doing. Nobody literally hands their children over to somebody that's lying and manipulating and falsifying everything. Nobody does it aware that they're doing that. They think that those people know what they're doing. They think they're doing their child a favor when they put them in a school where the information is just being pumped into them. Many parents don't.
No, they want to actually control what's being pumped into them.
Yeah.
Right? Which, nothing wrong with that. The problem is they're trying to mimic what was pumped into them. That's why they recognize. So I went to the Harvard school. I want to have my children go to Harvard school,
Right.
and because I turned out okay. I want my kids to turn out okay. And the reality is I look at my life and I think to myself, whew, my dad said to me, do you love doing that? I remember working on cars. He says, do you love doing that? And I said, yeah, I do. He says, good. Keep doing it. He says, when the hands are at work, the mind is at ease. And I remember thinking to myself, what the heck does he mean by that? You know, I was 19 years old or 18, but I look back now and I realize that because what happens is stuff is being pumped into us, right? The only firewall that you can have to have things pumped into you is working with your hands and learning something like a skill, a trade, fixing something, working with the hands. Because guess what? You are learning something, and then the mind is open, and that is when God can put his love into your heart and his wisdom in your heart. When you're just being taught information over and over and over, information, unless you can apply it, like you're being taught to be a plumber, you're like, oh, I have the aha moment constantly. That's how you do that. Okay, now I want to go do it. But when the hands are at work, the mind is at ease. So that's why it says in the Bible, by the sweat off your brow shall you earn your bread. Mm-hmm. Very important that we work, that we don't just sit there and be trolls and troll. We have nothing better to do. I'll just find people to pick on and peck their eyeballs out like vultures. So that's why you watch my father. He's 91 years old. And he's still working. He's still learning. He's still growing. He's still understanding. He doesn't like to just sit, although he can. He sits sometimes and he'll just, what are you thinking about, Dad? Just sitting. My wife says to me, you know, even constantly, I wake up early in the morning. What are you thinking about? You know, I'm actually usually not thinking. I'm just being still, watching the thoughts. Which one are mine? Which are not? Guess what? Most of them are not. Memories to go and, you know, I need to go out and clean out the goat pen or something. That's
you know, though,
useful.
that actually comes back to what I was talking about, false memories, because the other question that comes up around what is true or what is false is what is consciousness. And there's a raging debate because the average scientist today believes that consciousness is a part of the body. Think about that. And that's why they don't address the mind-spirit connection. Most scientists are afraid of that question. But here's what they're concluding. They're concluding that maybe consciousness exists outside the body. In other words, maybe the consciousness is not a prisoner of our flesh. This is what scientists are saying. We've been saying this. My dad's been saying it for 50 years. Consciousness is a side effect of learning to see the truth. That's what happens. Exactly what happens. You see the truth, it sets you free.
Has anybody ever seen a dead person?
I have.
Okay, right? Most people, I think of our age, this group in this audience. Isn't it interesting how 1 minute the person is talking to you and they have a consciousness, an awareness, a spirit and a soul, and the next minute they're an object. The only difference between us being just an object and a human being is the soul and the consciousness. Isn't that interesting? That's the life that God breathed into dust and made it into us. And that consciousness, I believe, my dad wrote a book about the parallel universe.
Yeah.
And I believe, and that's why we've decided to rename the movie The Religion Matrix and the Man That Broke the Code. Because at the end of the day, there is a matrix. There's just, if you've seen the movie The Matrix, there's the people that are in the real world, and then there's the people that are on the surface, just puppets acting out almost like just ants in an ant farm, doing unconsciously what they do. And at some point, you have to become one with your spirit. And the only way you can do that is to reconnect to the mothership, I should say the fathership, in God.
One more thing I want to share about things. I like to sort of help you with things I've learned watching the 38 years of helping kids and working with troubled people, is judgment. This is besides the fact you don't doubt yourself, and trolls, supreme judgers, right? Average person has no originality in themselves. So the only way they can feel like something is to either put you down or put you up. And being that we're Roy's kids, we've experienced that. People hate us because we're Roy's kids, or they like us because we're Roy's kids.
And you know what I've said before? Don't judge me bad. Don't judge me good. It's the same thing. I don't want to be judged as I'm a good person. You're putting me on a pedestal. It's the same as judging me as a bad person when you really don't know me. Just don't judge.
No. Judgment is mine, saith the Lord. It's not ours. And I see people making horrible judgments their whole life. It is the one thing that keeps them from God, because you are playing God. It was their opportunity to hate me, so then they start ripping me down. But see, I didn't go anywhere because I never got excited about other people looking at us like we're wonderful. I always thought that's a fake news, that's a lie. And judgment to me, besides doubting, is one of the most evil things you can do. And if you can stop the judging and look at who you've become by being a judger, you'll realize you did not go anywhere in life. You did not excel.
I can say this, that we were talking about firewall. Mm-hmm. There's no firewall in the mind. But judgment is one of the devil's firewall to keep you from getting to God. Because he says to you, you can be God. And that will keep you from ever reaching God if you think you're God, if you don't yield to the higher power. And so it's a very brilliant firewall that the devil has constructed to make you feel like God. So guess what? You're limiting your own self. So that's why judgment is poison to the soul, and it'll kill you. It'll kill you because you won't have what you're supposed to have in life. You won't have what God wants for you, because you'll never reach that point.
The scripture says you're first of flesh and second of spirit. I thought about that for 25 years, and it became more and more clear to me. You come into this world, you're compelled to live in the flesh. Once you get comfortable there, because it's hard, it's not easy getting comfortable in your flesh. Everybody goes through those self-conscious times and being a teenager and growing up, and you don't know how to fit in. But you see other people. Look at that person. That person's comfortable in their flesh. They're so comfortable, they put tattoos all over it. They do all kinds of weird. They put earrings and do their hair weird. But when you are at a point where you realize that you can only go so far in your flesh, that's when you become second of spirit. That's when the spirit of awareness, the antidote for the flesh is awareness. The antidote for involvement in the world is simply awareness. Of course, and this is what the scripture tells us about being still and knowing. What are we going to know? Wait a minute. You know what the first thing I realized? I was 23 years old, sitting at a party, out in the backyard. I think I mentioned this last time we talked. Kids come out to me, and I'm usually the life of the party, spinning the discs and everything else. What are you doing out here? What's wrong with you? I said, there's nothing wrong with me. I was realizing that wasn't my place. At 23 years old, I saw it clearly. I didn't know where to go yet.
Yeah.
But I saw that I wasn't to be there. Because if I was going to be there, I'd get stuck there, just like everybody else.
It's funny. I remember when I was, I think 17, almost 18, I dropped out of high school my senior year because I said to my dad, I can't learn anything there. I want to learn about cars. I love cars. I'm having so much fun with cars, and I want to go to the junior college where I can take a more advanced class. And my dad says, well, as long as you don't sit around and watch TV, if I find you sitting around and watching TV, you'll be in military school. And I said, don't worry, I want to learn. And so I quit school. I started working on cars. I went to school and I learned how to do some welding, and I only did that for about 8 weeks. Once I learned welding, I'm like, I'm done. And the teacher offered me a chance to be the teacher's aide because I was such a good welder. I tried that for 2 days, and I thought, I don't want to be a teacher. People just, they can't learn. I thought, learning is so easy. It's so wonderful. When I'm interested. If I'm not interested, you can't smash a square peg in a round hole. But if you're interested and you're putting it into an application, learning is fantastic. It's living. So I'm standing there at the graduation that I was supposed to be at, and I'm under the bleachers, and I'm looking through the feet because I was embarrassed that I didn't graduate high school. And I'm looking through the feet at the kids graduating. They're calling off the names. And just like you, something said to me, you'll never amount to anything. You'll never be anything. And I was like, yeah, wow. And then I went, wait a minute. Well, who is that? The other head, right? Where did that come from? I thought, this is crazy. What am I doing here? And I went back outside and got in my Porsche and drove away. Right? And then some of those kids, after they graduated, were working in liquor stores and things. And I had people working for me when I was 18. My 19-year-old son, Christian, just bought a house. He's 19 years old. My children, I said, all of them, buy a house before you turn 20. Only one hasn't so far, but they've all done very well. And I know that we have to recognize the difference between the voice in our head that tells us we can't and the one in our heart that we know we can. Diane.
I was going to one-up you. I quit school at 16. And the reason why I hated school so much, because exactly what you said. And I had these people say, well, they're never going to hire you. Never. And all about they. They say you have to get a high school diploma. Well, tell a little story real quick. I was 16 and I legally wanted to quit school, so they made me go sit in front of the board of education, 12 people, and big long table. Mom went with me. She sat quietly. They wouldn't let her say a word, and I was at the end, and I felt like I was in this corporate, situation. And here I am, 16 years old. They went around the table, and each told me what I was going to fail at. You're going to fail. You're going to be a drug addict. So statistics say you're going to be a drug addict. Statistics say you're going to do this, blah, blah, blah. And it went all around, 12 people. I stood up at the end, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up, but I know one thing. I'm going to leave school. You people are still here. And they were like, so I did know one, but I do want to say one thing. It's the they, and I've always felt stupid in my whole life. Dad made me okay. He made me feel okay about being stupid. He says, stupid is actually a good thing. That's what he says to me when I'm like 16 years old, because they try to make you feel like you're stupid in their way. But I was okay being stupid. So then there wasn't a huge expectation from me, right? And I feel like my best thing in my whole entire life was feeling like, well, I'm kind of dumb, so maybe I'll go start a jewelry business. And I was driving a Mercedes by the time I was 16.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I was riding on a $25 million jet 2 days ago, and I was talking to the guy that owned it. And he says, it's a darn good thing I didn't graduate high school, because we wouldn't be sitting on this jet right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you look at a lot of folks in the entrepreneurial world that have made it, they're the people that quit the conventional school. I mean, even Bill Gates quit college to start Microsoft and so on and so forth. But I remember when I was working and I was the voice of Fortune magazine for a year or so, somebody asked me, where'd you go to school? And I said, the School of Hard Knocks. And I looked at the guy and I winked and I turned around because I didn't want him to ask me again, because I had no, Ventura Junior College for 8 weeks. I was the voice of Fortune magazine. But you'll find that in that world, there are a lot of people that are self-made. And I think it's really kind of funny how in our life we think there's, like David was saying, that you're downloaded this thing you're supposed to do. You go to college and you get a degree and you hang it on the wall and you maybe become a lawyer. But most of these people in their lives, I shouldn't say that, not most. Many of these people, I only deal with successful people in this job that I have right now with Entrepreneur Magazine that I'm working with, where I'm talking to the ones that have succeeded, and I want to know, what is your success story? Most of them, you will hear stories from this group of successful people. I was a lawyer, and I hated it, so I started a business. and now I'm a multi-millionaire or a billionaire. And I started a sunglasses company, and I'm a billionaire. On and on and on and on. Has nothing to do with their education at school. That education is important. Teaches how to read and write and do arithmetic and whatever it is. But the moment you have that knowing, I'm not going down the right road, pull the ripcord, parachute out. I have some friends that started a company called Parachute because of that exact reason. They were both huge, successful people. And if you want to go look at it, parachute.co. And it has to do with camera gear and camera equipment. And the world is changing. The guy had a corporate job. He was so miserable. He pulled the parachute and he started an entrepreneurial job, business, and now they're doing quite well. But aren't we searching for happiness? Is money happiness? No.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
So I had friends when I was growing up and in high school. I quit school at 7th grade, but I stayed there anyway because I didn't know what else to do. But as I got into high school, I had friends that were building houses, and I happened to fall into a good group of kids that were, not kids, but one guy was a foreman, and he had all the rest of us building houses with him. And I was actually down in Malibu building $1 million homes, and that day those were very expensive homes. And of course I was expendable, so he had me up on the parquet ceiling doing the little pieces of wood on scaffolding that was 25 feet, and so he knew if I fell, I'd just get another one. But at a certain point, I realized, no, I don't want to continue building houses. I did that for several years. It just wasn't my thing. I liked it. So I saw my dad helping people. And in particular, one lady, Diane will remember this lady. Dad bought an MG from her. What was her name? Okay, anyway, she ended up with leukemia, and she was dying. And she would come over to our house and babysit. And so one day she came over. She was really, really bad. I mean, her hair was falling out. She was getting chemo and all the rest of it. And my dad said something to her, and a week later she came back and she was like fresh. She looked like a new person. And I thought, that's what I want to do. When you see it actually happen in front of your eyes.
When you put that little piece of a puzzle for somebody in their life, something is
when
small.
somebody is dying and they come back to life, you say, first of all, how do you do that? That's when I started working with my dad. So I was 23 years old when I started working for my dad. I did a lot of stuff before then. So, it wasn't easy because I would sit around the corner. This is kind of a funny thing. My dad's office was like around the corner there, and I would sit there and I'd listen when people would go in. It's like, I know what I'd say to those people. So I'd listen, and my dad would say something opposite, absolutely opposite of what I thought I would tell them, right? So I started to look at my own, like Diane said, judgment. Like I was judging the person on the surface. If a person was attractive, I thought, oh, they can't have many problems, and the other way around. But I saw that my thinking processes were flawed, absolutely flawed, because it was just based on what I saw. I didn't have any insight or understanding about it. So it's funny that we're talking about this because I found some old cassette tapes of me from 1985. And I used to do discussion groups down on Venice Boulevard in Los Angeles. And thought, I'm going to see if what I sounded like. But my voice was really squeaky. Hi, like this.
It was before the sex change operation.
Before that. Yeah, but so I'm sitting here just listening to it. My wife's listening to it. And she's going, wow, you really did have it. So I didn't know. How would you know when you have it? You put yourself out there. You go to that place where it's hard. You put yourself in front of people. That's the test of the whole thing right there.
It reminds me of Peter Pan with the guy looking for his little bag of marbles.
Oh, there you are.
No, he says, have you seen my marbles?
Oh, yeah. I lost my marbles.
I want to bring Chuck up here because I have a question
absolutely.
for Chuck. And then this is Chuck Williams. You guys have probably seen him do the talk before. He's on our board of directors. And I've known Chuck for probably 30 years. You've been around my father for some 45 or 50 years.
I first heard Roy in 1965.
Talking to that mic.
First heard Roy in 1965. So
Wow. So
I was a young nothing.
Yeah, 50 plus years. So I just, it's funny. You are very close to our family, probably closer than most because you're on the board of directors. You are watching. It's probably the best thing to say. He gets to watch from a certain distance my father's life, his teachings, his foundation, because he's on the board of directors. But I will say that, over this last 2 years that I've been running this organization, you've been a tremendous help, and I want to thank you publicly.
Thank you.
We've had our disagreements, and
We've been yelling at each other.
I wanted to punch him right in the Adam's apple one time. Only once. I'm joking. But he has been a sage to me, because he's calm. He stays calm. He doesn't know what to do. Sometimes he just walks out, because sometimes you're better off to walk away and fight another day. But we've been through a lot together, and I just appreciate having people outside of our family, because our family, we grew up. We're still kids. We're still. When I look at my brother David, he's still my older brother that used to torture me. My sister. Yeah, he still does. I used to sleep in the same bed with my sister when I was 6, and the covers were so thick that I could barely even survive in there. But she protected me when I was a little kid. She thought I protected her, and I thought she protected me. But we're still those kids.
Yeah.
But see, I've only known you as a man.
Yeah.
And you've only probably known me as an adult anyway. And I'm trying to become a man, and I think, what I think a real man is. I always hold my dad in that position. But it's just wanted to really say thank you for being a involved party that didn't just decide enough of this. Because you know what? The patience that you've had with our struggles of my father's age and some of his illness problems we've had, you've been a big help there too. But I think it's important for people to hear from you a little bit too about, just what we've been going through and how we're evolving the foundation.
Right.
Because I hope that you like what we're doing.
Well, life is, as you all three said today, life is a struggle and it's an evolution, and you have your ups and downs and you grow through that. And to say, well, you're not doing the foundation right, is a little bit odd to me, because, if someone says something I disagree with, I'll be glad to disagree and argue and make my point. But we're talking about not just Roy Masters' works, because his works are there. It's about carrying on his work. And it's really not his work. He'll tell you, it's not my work. This is what I'm sent here to do.
Right.
And so, well, how do you carry on? If he was sent, how do I carry on? I got to find out where he got sent from.
Right.
And that's what it's all about.
Tapping into that higher.
And down. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's an up and down thing, and it's not a philosophical thing. We can talk philosophy all we want. It's about dealing with people, dealing with and finding this energy that's different than our human energy. So that's what the struggle is. And every day I say, why am I here? What am I doing here? Why would I be here? I'm just me. But I just get up. And I show up.
It's interesting you said that, because the other day somebody said to me, I don't know how you're doing all this. And nobody really knows all the things that I'm doing, and it doesn't matter, because I think each one of you has a tremendous weight on your shoulders. It's called life. And I remember thinking to myself in the movie The Ten Commandments, when Moses was standing there in the burning bush, and God said to him, go bring my people out of Israel. And he said, who am I, Lord? Who am I to do that? What shall I say? And God said into his heart, I'll put the words in your heart. Just go. Just show up. And I think then Moses got to the Red Sea, and he had how many thousands and thousands of people behind him. And then he thought, did I lead them astray? Did I lead the people astray? How? What will we do? The enemy is on our tail. We can see them coming down the mountain. What will I do, Lord? Oh, and he said, and he put the staff in the ocean, and the ocean parted, right? And that's, of course, very theatrical with the movie. We don't really know what happened there, but the Lord parted the sea. Nothing is impossible if you believe in the Lord and you yield to the higher power of the Lord. You just have to show up. I see empty chairs in here. There's a lot of us that believe in this. Where are we? Where are they? Where have you been? The trolls that are asking the questions of, where's Roy? He's 91 years old. He's at home. He's sitting in a chair. He's in the hospital sometimes. He's old. He needs to have a chance to rest. But we're here. We're showing up. Where are you? What difference are you making? What ripple effect will you leave for your family? Or what scorched earth will you leave from being a selfish pig in your life? That's the question. It's easy to stay home and be selfish. I've been coming to this talk for years, even when I wasn't my dad's favorite. But I still showed up, and I tried to help get this message out to the world, because I knew it wasn't me, but the ripple effect I could do was to make sure that my Father's message got out. The message that he brings from the Father in heaven, that someday I'll be able to bring in a righteous way. But I'm going to show up. David's showing up. Diane is showing up. Chuck is showing up. You folks are showing up. You folks watching are showing up. Make your life a ripple effect in this world by showing up, stand up, and yield to a higher power so that he can put his love in your heart, and that will be the ripple effect. You will do it without even knowing what you did, like Diane said. I don't even know what I'm doing because it isn't of you. You are being a conduit for the Father in heaven. So I want to thank you, Diane.
He always does this. I don't understand.
Chuck.
It's my Diane.
Chuck. I love Chuck. I love my sister Diane. I love my brother David. I love the people that come and take the time to show up.
At one point, Roy asked me to come on the board of directors several years ago, just out of the blue. He said, if I have to leave and go to New Zealand, will you take over the foundation? And I said, what the heck is this? And I didn't know what it was. I'll say, I'll help you, Roy. And then a whole series of things happened, and we redid some resolutions, put new board members on. And at first it was Diane and myself and Wendy and Ann and Roy. But at some point, things were getting confusing, and I said, Roy, I don't want to run this foundation. We've got to figure out some way to keep this going if you lose it. And so I looked into, he said, well, talk to the lawyer. So I looked in, called the lawyer, and I asked him, could you tell me something about running this with a trust, how they do that? And they finally got back to me with this document explaining it all. And I read it, and I said, ooh, this doesn't sound good at all.
It ain't easy, baby. It ain't easy.
And then I went to Roy. I said, Roy, I got to talk to you about this. And so we're sitting back in his little studio in his office, and I said, Roy, I got this thing from the lawyer, and I don't think foundation thing, this trust thing is what it is the way to go. And he says, well, you're right, Chuck. I think I want Alan to run this foundation. Because when someone hands you something, say, do this, and you take it, is it easy? Or do you have to take it and now try to learn how to make it work with you there instead of the other person? It's all a growing process. And that's what it is. And I love that we don't know day to day what's next.
I know that so many of these family members that are, they call my dad their Papa Roy and Grandpa Roy, and they're like family members. And so I honor the fact that maybe you didn't have a father and you used my dad as your dad, and I'm good with that. So we want to keep that going, and we want to be a family, a community. So thank you very much.